I was sitting in a meeting last Tuesday, nodding along while my boss talked about quarterly goals and team synergy and all these buzzwords that meant absolutely nothing to me. And while everyone else was taking notes and asking questions about implementation timelines, my brain was somewhere else entirely. I was thinking about how strange it is that we spend a third of our lives working for companies that could replace us in a week. How we build identities around job titles that don't actually define who we are. How everyone in this room is pretending to care about metrics when what we really want is to feel like our lives matter. And then someone said my name, asked for my input, and I snapped back to reality, gave some generic answer about leveraging resources, and watched them nod like I'd said something meaningful. But inside, I felt this familiar ache, this sense of being completely alone in a room full of people. Because while they were discussing the what, I was drowning in the why. And that's when it hit me. I'm a deep thinker, and deep thinkers don't fit easily into a world that rewards quick answers and surface-level conversations. If you've ever felt like this, if you've ever been lost in thought while the world moves around you, if people have called you intense or too serious, or told you to just relax and stop overthinking everything, this is for you. Because being a deep thinker isn't just about being smart. It's not about having a high IQ or reading philosophy books or using complicated words. It's about something much more fundamental. It's about how your brain processes reality. It's about seeing layers that other people don't see. It's about feeling everything so intensely that sometimes you wish you could just turn your mind off for 5 minutes and experience life the way everyone else seems to. Simply, easily, without all this constant analysis. Let me explain what I mean. Most people look at a tree and see a tree. But a deep thinker looks at that same tree and sees a living thing that's been rooted in one spot for decades, bending toward light, surviving storms, growing rings inside its trunk that tell the story of every year it's been alive. Maybe they think it's pretty, maybe they don't think about it at all. They see how it mirrors their own life in ways they can't quite articulate. They find metaphors in everything. A conversation isn't just an exchange of words, it's a study of emotion, intention, subtext. A silence isn't just quiet, it's a question waiting to be asked. A glance from across the room becomes an entire story about connection and longing and the things we're too afraid to say out loud. Psychologists call this high trait introspection. It's the tendency to analyze not just what's happening around you, but what's happening inside you. Deep thinkers are constantly scanning for meaning, asking why not to be difficult, but because why feels like oxygen. And here's what's fascinating. This is linked to a specific part of the brain called the default mode network. This network lights up when we're daydreaming, reflecting, remembering, imagining. It's the same area that's active during creativity. So a deep thinker's brain is literally wired differently. While most people's minds quiet down when they're not actively focused on a task, a deep thinker's mind gets louder. It starts making connections, weaving memories with ideas, comparing past experiences to present moments, projecting into possible futures. It's like having 10 browser tabs open at all times, each one playing a different video, and you can't close any of them. But here's where it gets complicated. This same ability that lets you see patterns and find meaning and understand things on a deeper level, it also isolates you. Because while everyone else is reacting to life, moving through it at surface level, you're observing, you're pausing, you're noticing details that no one else sees. And by the time you've processed all those layers and you're ready to speak, the conversation has moved on. So you stay quiet. And people think you're disinterested or shy or stuck up when really, you're just operating on a different frequency. You don't want small talk. You crave real conversations, the kind that dive below the surface into fears and dreams and the questions that keep you up at night. But those conversations are rare, so you learn to nod along, to smile politely, to save your real thoughts for when you're alone. And that's the first struggle of being a deep thinker. You overthink everything. I'm not talking about anxiety, though the two often overlap. I'm talking about the inability to let moments just be moments. You replay conversations in your head, dissecting every sentence. Did I say too much? Did they mean what I think they meant? Why did their tone change when I mentioned that thing? It's not insecurity. It's that you see nuance everywhere. Every interaction has 12 possible interpretations. Every choice branches into different futures, and your brain won't stop until it's explored all of them. There's a term in psychology called metacognition, which is the ability to think about your own thinking. Most people use it occasionally. Deep thinkers live inside it. You're constantly watching your own thoughts from the outside, questioning them, rearranging them, trying to understand your patterns. This makes you incredibly self-aware, but it also makes you exhausted. Because when you're aware of everything, you also see all your flaws in high definition. You don't just ask yourself what you want, you ask why you want it. Where does that desire come from? What would happen if you got it? What would happen if you didn't? You analyze love, ambition, fear, grief until you can almost hold these invisible things in your hands. But in doing so, you sometimes lose the simple joy of just being. You forget that not everything needs to be understood. Some things are meant to be felt. I remember being at a party once, standing in a corner with a drink I wasn't drinking, watching everyone else laugh and dance and seem so effortlessly present. And I wanted to be like that. I wanted to just let go and have fun without my brain narrating everything. But I couldn't. Because while they were living in the moment, I was thinking about how temporary moments are. How everyone in this room will eventually become strangers again. How we're all performing versions of ourselves that we think other people want to see. And the more I thought about it, the more disconnected I felt. Not from them, from reality itself, like I was watching life through glass instead of living it. And that's when I realized, this is what being a deep thinker feels like. It's beautiful and terrible at the same time. The second struggle is feeling misunderstood. Deep thinkers often come across as distant or aloof or hard to read. But that's not what's happening. You're not ignoring people. You're processing 10 layers of what they just said. You're trying to understand not just their words, but their intention, their emotion, the story behind the story. And that takes time. But the world doesn't give you time. It expects quick responses, easy answers, reactions instead of reflections. So you learn to fake it. You give people the answer you think they want instead of the truth you're still trying to find. And every time you do that, you feel a little more alone. Because here's the thing, deep thinkers don't just want to talk. They want to connect. They want conversations that matter. The kind where you're not just exchanging information, but sharing something real. Where you can say the things you're actually thinking instead of the safe, polite things everyone else is saying. But those conversations require vulnerability. And not everyone is ready for that level of depth. So you stay guarded. You become selective, watching and waiting until someone shows signs that they can handle who you really are. And when you finally do open up, when you let someone see the storm of thoughts inside your head, one of two things happens. Either they get it, and you've found your person, or they don't, and you feel more alone than you did before you tried. I've lost friendships over this, not because of arguments or betrayals, but because I needed depth, and they needed easy. I'd want to talk about why we're afraid of dying, or what we think happens to love after it ends, or whether we're living the lives we actually want, or just the lives we think we're supposed to want. And they'd look at me like I was ruining the vibe, like I was being too intense, too much. And maybe I was, but I couldn't help it. Because to me, these questions aren't heavy, they're just honest. And I'd rather have one real conversation than 100 shallow ones. The third struggle is emotional overwhelm. Deep thinkers don't just think deeply, they feel deeply. Everything hits harder. A kind word can restore your faith in humanity. A small betrayal can feel cosmic. Because you invest meaning into everything, you can't be casual about things that matter. And unfortunately, most things matter to you. You feel the weight of things other people walk right past. The way a stranger avoids eye contact. The way laughter fades when a moment ends. The way people promise forever while already thinking about tomorrow. You see what is, but you also see what could have been. And that gap between reality and possibility, that's where the pain lives. There's a concept in psychology called depth processing. It means you encode experiences with rich emotional associations. So when you remember something, you don't just recall the facts, you recall how it felt, what it symbolized, what it revealed about you or them or life itself. Memories aren't just moments to you, they're entire ecosystems of feeling. That's why nostalgia hits you so hard. That's why you can hear a song and suddenly be back in a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. Your brain and your heart are wired together. You think and feel simultaneously, and you can't turn one off without losing the other. This emotional intensity makes you empathetic in ways that most people can't understand. You can walk into a room and feel the tension nobody's talking about. You notice when someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. You sense the things people are trying to hide, not because you're psychic, but because you're paying attention to details everyone else misses. Micro-expressions, shifts in tone, the energy between people. You're constantly reading emotional data, processing it, trying to understand what's really happening beneath the surface. And that gift, because it is a gift, can also be exhausting, because you absorb too much. You pick up emotions that aren't even yours, and sometimes you can't tell the difference between what you're feeling and what you're sensing from someone else. That's why you need solitude, not because you're antisocial, but because being around people is like standing in a room with the music turned up too loud. You need quiet to process everything you've absorbed. You need space to untangle your thoughts from everyone else's energy. Alone, you reset. You journal or stare out windows or take long walks where your mind can finally breathe. And in that silence, you find yourself again. It's not loneliness, it's restoration. Because for you, solitude isn't isolation, it's where clarity lives. The fourth struggle, and this is the one that surprised me when I finally understood it, is paralysis by analysis. Deep thinkers see so many possibilities that making simple decisions becomes impossible. You can't just pick a restaurant because you're thinking about the experience you want to have, the conversation that might unfold, whether the atmosphere will be too loud, whether your friend will actually enjoy it, what it says about your taste if you pick wrong. A simple choice becomes a philosophical puzzle. And while you're weighing all these variables, everyone else has already decided and moved on. This happens with big decisions too: careers, relationships, where to live, what kind of life to build. Because you can see the consequences of every choice rippling out into different futures. You can imagine the version of yourself that takes the job and the version that doesn't. The life where you stay and the life where you leave. And both versions feel equally real, equally possible, equally terrifying. So you freeze, not because you're weak or indecisive, but because you're trying to make the choice that your future self won't regret. You're trying to see around corners that don't exist yet, and that's impossible. But you try anyway. Here's what I've learned though, and this took me years to understand. The same mind that can trap you can also free you. Because while deep thinking comes with all these struggles, it also comes with extraordinary gifts. You see patterns that other people miss. You make connections between ideas that seem unrelated. You solve problems from angles no one else considered. Some of history's most influential people were deep thinkers. Einstein didn't just understand physics, he questioned reality itself. Jung didn't just study the mind, he explored the invisible architecture of the human soul. Artists, writers, philosophers, inventors, they all had this same quality. They couldn't accept the world as it appeared. They needed to look deeper. And in that depth, they found things that changed how we understand everything. Deep thinkers are pattern recognizers. Your brain is constantly scanning for connections, for meaning, for the invisible threads that tie things together. That's why you're drawn to systems and structures, why you love understanding how things work, not just what they do. You don't just want the answer, you want to know why the answer is the answer. And that curiosity, when channeled correctly, becomes creativity, becomes innovation, becomes art that moves people or ideas, that shift perspectives or solutions that nobody else could see. You're also capable of profound empathy. Because you feel so deeply, you understand pain in ways that let you sit with someone in their darkness without trying to fix it. You don't offer empty platitudes, you offer presence. You see people not as good or bad, but as stories. Complex, contradictory, shaped by invisible battles and experiences that left marks you can't see. So you forgive more easily than most, even if you forget rarely. You let people go, but you keep the lessons they taught you. And you turn those lessons over in your mind like stones smoothed by time, trying to understand what they revealed about life, about love, about yourself. But here's where I need to be honest with you. There's a dark side to deep thinking that we have to talk about. Because while this way of being has gifts, it also has risks. Deep thinking can become rumination. The healthy kind of reflection that helps you understand yourself can turn into an unhealthy loop of anxiety and self-criticism. You can think yourself into depression by focusing too much on what's wrong, what's missing, what hurts. You can become so aware of suffering, your own and the world's, that it paralyzes you. And when your mind never stops, when you can't turn off the analysis and just be, that constant mental noise can lead to exhaustion, burnout, existential dread. There's a difference between deep thinking and overthinking. Deep thinking asks questions to understand. Overthinking asks questions to worry. Deep thinking explores. Overthinking spirals. And the line between them is thinner than you think. I've been on both sides. I've had moments where my depth felt like a superpower, where I could see truth that others missed and it made me feel alive. And I've had moments where my depth felt like drowning, where I couldn't stop analyzing everything until nothing felt real anymore, and I just wanted my brain to shut up for 5 seconds. The key, and I'm still learning this, is learning when to think and when to just be, when to analyze and when to accept, when to dive deep and when to stay at the surface, because not everything deserves that level of attention. Some things just are. Some moments don't need meaning. Some feelings don't need to be understood. They just need to be felt and then released. And for a deep thinker, that's one of the hardest lessons to learn. Because letting go of the need to understand everything feels like giving up. But it's not. It's wisdom. It's recognizing that peace doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from being okay with the questions. So how do you navigate the world as a deep thinker without losing yourself? First, you have to find your people. And I'm not gonna lie, they're rare. Most people won't understand you. They'll think you're too much or not enough or just weird. And that's okay. You're not looking for most people. You're looking for the few who speak your language. The ones who don't just tolerate your depth, but appreciate it. Who ask you what you're thinking instead of telling you to stop thinking so much. Who can sit with you in comfortable silence because they understand that sometimes silence says more than words ever could. When you find those people, hold on to them, because they're proof that you're not as alone as you sometimes feel. Second, you need to create spaces where your mind can rest. Not distraction, but actual rest. For some deep thinkers, that's meditation or mindfulness. For others, it's creative expression, writing or painting or music. For some, it's nature, being in places where you can think big thoughts without anyone expecting you to explain them. Find what quiets the noise. Find what lets you think without drowning. And protect that space like your life depends on it, because in some ways, it does. Third, learn to translate your depth into something the world can receive. Because here's the truth, your insights, your reflections, your unique way of seeing things, they matter. But if you keep them all inside, if you never share them because you're afraid people won't understand, you're doing the world a disservice. Find ways to express what you see. Maybe it's through art or writing or teaching, or just having real conversations with people who are ready to listen. Your depth isn't a burden, it's a gift. And the world needs people who can see what others miss, who can ask questions that others are afraid to ask, who can sit with complexity instead of demanding simple answers. And finally, be gentle with yourself. Being a deep thinker in a shallow world is hard. You're going to feel out of place sometimes. You're going to wish you could just be easy and light and carefree like everyone else seems to be, but you can't. And that's okay, because the world doesn't need more people who skim the surface. It needs people who dive deep, who feel fully, who think carefully, who see clearly. That's you. And while it might not always feel like a blessing, it is. I want to hear from you now. Are you a deep thinker? What's the hardest part for you? Is it the overthinking? The feeling misunderstood? The emotional overwhelm? Drop a comment and tell me which struggle resonates most. Because I guarantee there are thousands of people reading this who feel exactly the same way, and sometimes just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And if this video helped you understand yourself a little better, if it gave you permission to stop apologizing for your depth, hit that subscribe button. I make videos every week exploring the psychology of who we are, why we think the way we think, why we feel the way we feel, and how understanding ourselves better can help us navigate this complicated world. This channel is for people who aren't satisfied with surface-level answers, who want to understand the why behind the what, who believe that self-awareness is the first step to living authentically. Before I go, I want to leave you with this. Your mind, with all its depth and complexity and constant questioning, isn't a flaw. It's not something you need to fix or tone down or apologize for. Yes, it makes life harder sometimes. Yes, it isolates you. Yes, it's exhausting. But it also makes you capable of seeing beauty in places most people never look. It makes you capable of understanding pain in ways that let you hold space for others. It makes you capable of insights that can change lives, including your own. So stop trying to fit into conversations that were never meant for you. Stop pretending to care about things that don't matter. Stop shrinking your thoughts to make other people comfortable. The world has enough people who think small. It needs more people like you. People who can look at a tree and see a lifetime. People who can sit in silence and hear entire symphonies. People who understand that depth in a shallow world is its own kind of rebellion. You're not too much. You're not too intense. You're not overthinking. You're just awake in a world that's mostly sleepwalking. And that's not a curse. That's a calling. So think deeply, feel fully, question everything, and know that somewhere out there are others like you doing the same thing. And maybe that's enough. Maybe knowing you're not alone in your depth is what makes the loneliness bearable. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me into your thoughts for these few minutes. I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you next week. Until then, keep thinking, keep feeling, keep being beautifully, impossibly you.